cultures of African countries, because as I see other African countries, we share some cultural tools to undergo with our culture. We share same traditions and same customs, so it's quite same as other countries, other African countries.
All right. Thank you for the contribution which you have just made about the tradition, which is same across all Africa. We do appreciate that. And let's move on to our next speaker, whose name is Precious Makochera, all the way from Malawi. Yes, Mr. Makochera, can you hear me? You can unmute yourself.
Yeah, I think I can hear you.
All right, just a quick update. You can introduce yourself and tell us what you got.
Okay. My name is Precious Mikan Makochera from Malawi. I think I'm one of the members of I Love Black People, of which I think I've joined it. It's almost a year now since I joined the movement. So today I think I just want to make a brief about the culture of Malawi. So I think I'll just make it briefly. So Malawi as a nation is rich with different cultures, history, and tradition. The people of Malawi have a deep respect for their culture, which has been passed through generations to generations. The people of Malawi have a strong sense of community and family, and the culture revolves around the idea of communalism. Malawi is the home to a wide variety of tradition and arts and craft. For instance, I think we have wood carving, basket weaving, poetry, and even metal workings. The culture of Malawi also includes traditional ceremonies and rituals that are held to mark important occasions, such as birth, weddings, and funerals. These ceremonies are often accompanied by traditional music, dance, and even storytelling. I think in conclusion, all I can say is like the culture of Malawi is beautiful and complex. With the old and the new, it is a culture, community, and family of music and dance, the art of rituals. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Brother Makochera, for presenting today. I understand you have been with us for it's almost a year now. We appreciate that, and also for those who have just joined us, thank you. We welcome you again. Happy festive season. Happy Christmas Eve to some of you. Good morning again to some of you, and good afternoon depending on where you are. Thank you for being with us on this I Love Black People Pan-African Solidarity meeting, whereby we will be discussing various issues. Also, I would like to introduce Yvonne Adushume, and also to just tell us on what's up on the oncoming GreenBook, which is going to be launched. Hopefully, it's going to be launched before the year ends. The GreenBook, it's a clear reflection of what our idea is all about protecting Black people from racism and xenophobia using tech. So the idea came from the GreenBook, and we did launched an application again this year, which is called the Love Black People Safe Places app. And also developers are also busy right now enhancing and making the application more convenient to us, and also adding more features to the application so that it will be easier and easier to use, and it won't consume much data and space in our phones. The application is available on both iOS and Android devices. At the moment, we are waiting for the developers to give us the new features which you guys, members and ambassadors, requested to be added on the application, so that we can enjoy and use it to protect ourselves from the racism and xenophobia. Yes, Yvonne, can you give us a quick update on what to look forward in our upcoming GreenBook, which is going to be launched soon?
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, depending where you are. Yes, soon, like in 2 weeks, you're going to launch the new global GreenBook 2022, and we have included a lot of interesting topics. One of them is when I Love Black People went to Poland to rescue Black students who were fleeing from racism and war. And also we even included the bus tour in Zambia, and also the Black Blockchain Summit and other healthcare providers. So I just shared a link in the comment section. You can just join the wait list. Once we launch the book, we will notify you that you can access it on Amazon. So you can even share this link with your friends and family to be notified once the book is ready to be published. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Yvonne. And also, what to look forward in the GreenBook. Also, we did contribute about the universities which are led by indigenous professors, and also majority of Black leaders in those universities, which we're going to also include in our GreenBook. And also, we do always have a healthcare section in the GreenBook again, whereby Nana Kua will be presenting the natural holistics and natural herbs on how we can protect ourselves naturally using those herbs. It will be also in the GreenBook, and also some features of the other members who are in the diaspora, whereby they were at the border in Poland, helping Black people who were facing racism when they're trying to flee away from the war from Ukraine with the Russian, and how they presented our application as a source of a place where database has been stored, and no hassle of looking for a transport. All you needed to do was go through the app and see the few transportation which were free from racism and xenophobia in those areas as well. So that's what to look up for before year ends about the GreenBook. So you can sign through the waiting list so that you'll be the first to receive the good news when it's launched. So we'll be looking forward for you signing. And also those who are live on Facebook, the link is also being shared. You can check it out on the description, and also in the comment section, we'll be sharing the link as well. Yeah, moving forward, we're going to have one of our Pan-Africanists. He's doing a great work, and also his country is doing good in terms of economic development and youth empowerment, employment it's our neighbor in Zambia. His name is Brother David Chishimba. Yeah, yes, Brother David, welcome to our Pan-African history meeting. Yes, can you unmute yourself?
Are you able to get me?
Yes, I will able to get you. You can introduce yourself and the work you are doing, and also present on today's topic.
Okay, thank you for having me on this panel. I'd just love to thank the organizers for coming up with this very important Zoom meeting, because as we are aware, the Pan-Africanism culture is eroding away. The passion is eroding, and we need to engineer of. Okay, you're able to get me now? Yes, we need to form new groups who are going to pioneer Pan-Africanism in Africa, because the passion which our forefathers, such as the Kwame Nkrumah's, Samora Machel, is slowly fading away. It's no longer there. So we need to revive that passion. So my name is David Chimba. I'm from Zambia. I'm an activist involved in a good governance activism. So I've been doing a number of works concerning advocating for the participation of young people, women, and also persons with disabilities. We are persons with disabilities. So we have done a number of protests concerning these issues where our concerns haven't been heard, because we are very passionate about the work that we do, and we want to ensure that whatever we advocate for is actually implemented. So moving forward, I would like to present on the topic, which is our culture and how it unites us. When we talk of culture, we are supposed to know exactly where the different customs that we have, where they came from. We're supposed to understand the basic customs that we have in each individual country, where they came from. So looking at culture, we are all supposed to understand that there have been stages in the evolution of different African cultures that have happened. In the first place, there were kingdoms which were there. Let's say starting like 3,500 BC, before Christ. There were groups of people who were there, states which were there, such as in the southern Africa, we had the Khoisan people. We also had some pygmies in the Congo region, but the Southern Africa was mostly dominated by the Khoisan people. In the east there, in the Horn of Africa and northeast there, we had the Cushitic people, and around the Nile River there, we had the Nilotic people. Somewhere up there, there were other people who were there in the west. But the migration of the Bantu-speaking people who were around Nigeria and Cameroon, this is one of the most significant events in the development of Africa. The Bantu-speaking people started migrating 1000 BC, which is about 3,000 years ago. So some of them migrated to the east, some of them migrated to the south, and I'm sure some of them migrated to the north. So those who migrated to the east, they met the Cushitic people and the Nilotic people, and I'm sure there was that mixture of culture and customs. And then others who migrated to the south, they met the Khoisan people. They also met the pygmies in the Congo, basin, the rainforest, Congo rainforest there. So after that event, there were two events. The first one, the first wave, there were the Bantu-speaking people migrating to the east. Then the second wave, they migrated to the south. So those who migrated to the east during the second wave, again, they started migrating to the south. So those who mixed with the Cushitic people up there, they got some cultures from there, and then they migrated with the same cultures down to the south. So one thing that we need to understand is that all of us African people, we are interconnected in terms of culture. I'll come to that when I outline the basic cultures, that unites us, the basic cultures that we have that unites us, so that we are able to say that actually the basic cultures minus the external influence, it's the same. We are all the same. We are basically the same, So after that event now, they started forming kingdoms, because as a people, there was that competition of land, minerals and whatnot. So they had to protect themselves. Wherever they settled, those who settled in, for example, the Congo and Angola, they formed the Congo Kingdom. those who settled in the Great Lakes of Africa, which is Tanzania up there. They formed the Bunyoro Kitara. There was a Bunyoro Kitara kingdom. Those who settled in South Africa, there was the Mampungdwe kingdom somewhere in down there. Up north, yeah, I'm sure those who are in West Africa, they are, I'm sure they know about the Mali kingdom. There was the Ghana kingdom. There was also the Songhai kingdom. So there were these kingdoms during that particular time. So after the formation of kingdoms, you know, they started trading. So these kingdoms were a mixture of cultures. Those who settled in, for example, those who formed the Congo kingdom, there were some people whom they found there. So those who did not run, because the Bantu-speaking people were more advanced in culture than the Khoisan. So those Khoisan who did not run, they started mixing with the Bantu-speaking people, you know, and also others, the Pygmies who did not run, they started mixing. They were intermarriages and whatnot. So there was that mixture of culture. So the culture which was formed was as a result of the cultures of these two people who lived there. So after that, now they started trading with each other. This kingdom which was formed started trading with the other kingdom. There was also now that continuation of the mixing of these cultures, you know. Then after that event now, that's when now, we started trading with the European. There was that exploration of Africa. We started trading with them. There was now slave trade. But slave trade, as far as African culture is concerned, didn't affect us that much. What affected us that a lot is the colonization of Africa. Because when we were colonized, there were certain customs which were forced on us. We were just supposed to do that because Westerners and the Europeans, they thought their cultures were more superior to ours. So we were forced to adopt some of those cultures. Others, we just adopted them ourselves by way of observation. If we like a certain culture or a certain custom, we would adopt that custom, yeah. So there was that. So during the same colonization, some of the effects which came as a result of that, where I'll give an example of some of the things which led to us, adopting some of our cultures. Like, for example, for the Portuguese, for you to be considered as civilized and elite, you are supposed to denounce your African cultures. If you denounce your African cultures and accept the Portuguese culture, then you are considered to be elite and civilized. For the French speaking countries, for you to be considered a French, you're supposed to denounce your African culture. If you denounce your African culture, then you are going to be considered, as a French, they'll recognize you as a French. So those are some of the things which happened during the colonization of Africa. Now there was the urbanization, there was the industrialization. Now people had to move to cities where there were industrialization to look for work, means of living and whatnot. So those who are in the villages started moving to industries. So there was also that continuous mixing of cultures. So culture is something that evolves, culture evolves over time. So this is how our culture had been evolving from the time that there was that great migration of the Bantu speaking people. Now from that, we had independence. We were independent. So now there was that realization that actually our culture had been lost, and more especially by Christianity, because our forefathers who accepted Christianity and other religions, they had to forsake our traditions because we thought they were not okay. So we had to accept Christianity. We had to accept Islam and other religions which came with the colonizers, because we thought our culture wasn't good enough. So now, after independence, we had to see that actually we had lost our culture, we had lost our traditions, we had lost our customs. So there was that need to reconstruct our culture and our traditions so that we can recognize ourselves as a people. So that's, the evolution of African culture. But basically, this shows that we are all interconnected. We are all the same, because the Bantu-speaking people, those who moved in the south, those who moved in the east, and those who moved in the west, they all had, that influence wherever they go. We are almost just the same. So what has led us to have a difference in our cultures is the people that we found, the things that we picked along the way, and of course, the influence of the people that we met. So that is how our culture has been affected. Now, post-independence, now there's technology now. You understand? So this technology, we are influenced every day by what we see on the media. We are influenced every day by what we see using these gadgets, televisions, radio cassettes, and whatnot. So this is how our culture, has been influenced. So, but looking at Africa, we can see that we have a lot of similarities as an African nation, because when you look at Africa, in every state that you're going to go, every country that you're going to go, to, we respect our elders. When you are greeting our elders, wherever, even if you are to go to Nigeria, you come to Zambia, go to Tanzania, there's that show of respect. We don't talk to our elders like the way they do it in the Western country, where you just greet your elder standing up and you call them by their name. There are some things that we add to the name of an elder to signify that that person is older than you, and you're showing them respect. In Africa, in Zambia, we also knew when we are greeting our elders, or when you want to give them something, you want to hand over something, you knew as a show of respect, towards, that elder. Then when you look at our marriage ceremonies, in most of African countries, I don't know if there's any African country that doesn't practice this. We know that we have dowry. We always have to pay dowry. In Zambia, we call it in Salamu. We have to pay dowry. You have to give money to the parents of the woman that you're getting married to. So there's dowry in almost every African state. So these are common customs that we came with, I'm sure from up north there. So when we are eating, we're not supposed to talk during our meals. That's also a custom that we have here in Zambia, and I'm sure in most African countries. You are not supposed to eat with your left hand. We eat with our right hands. When you're receiving a gift, you're supposed to receive with both hands. That's a show of respect. When you come to Zambia, Zambia is as a people, we are a happy people. We are a happy people. We are accommodative. We are friendly. When you come to Zambia, we don't segregate. Even if you come from Mali, you come from Nigeria, you come from Chad, you come from South Africa, we will not segregate you when we realize that you're a foreigner. We'll treat you like a Zambian. In fact, if anything, we might even treat you better than a Zambian. So there's no segregation, just a friendly and accommodative people. If you have a business which is running, you won't say, no, that one is from Zimbabwe, so we won't go and buy from them. No, we'll buy from you as long as you're a good person. Also, you're just trading legally, we'll be friends with you. So that's about Zambia. So Zambia has got 73 languages and 73 ethnic groups. So we mix as a Zambian people. So we have traditional ceremonies. That's our culture. Every year we hold traditional ceremonies for these different ethnic groups, and anyone in Zambia is free to attend. In fact, anyone even outside Zambia is free to attend these traditional ceremonies. So that's some notable things about Zambian culture. Just like any other African culture, we also have ceremonies when getting married, like paying dowry. We also have
yes, Mr. David, we are running out of time. We have a minute to just wrap up. Anana Kwa I've joined for the healthcare lecture.
Okay, yeah, I'll just talk about the political culture of Zambia. As Zambians, we are not very radical in terms of politics. For example, we don't do coup d'etats. We also don't form guerrillas or rebels in the bush and start fighting the government. We just use politics and democracy. We always speak our mind. We speak our mind every time, and we just wait for elections. During campaigns, just like in African country, sometimes people die during campaigns, during confrontations, but handovers are always peaceful. When someone loses, they immediately hand over. So I think those are the most significant things. But I just wanted to talk about Pan-Africanism as a culture. I think there is an erosion of ideology. Most young people who are being born now, even some of our fathers, they don't understand Pan-Africanism at all. So that culture is eroding.
Mr. David, I think on that part, we need you again next week to go deeper on the Pan-African culture erosion and see how we can go about it. Thank you so much again for the speech. We did learn a lot, and also encouragement for each and every one of us to love one another. We are all one. There's no need to do xenophobia. There's no need to hate each other. We are from our motherland, which is Africa. We are the same, we are one. We appreciate that encouragement, and we did learn a lot. And also for those who joined later on, join us next week as our brother David Chisamba going to talk more again on the Pan-Africanism culture and how it was about to go erosion, or how it was going to be destroyed by this white supremacy, which we learned that they thought that we can't do anything ourselves. Again, thank you, Brother Kisamba. And without wasting time, we're going to have Nana Akua to present to us the healthcare lecture. Hope each and everyone is prepared. You can turn on your camera so that Nana Akua can teach and see the happy faces of every one of you in here, and receive a shout out from Nana Akua. Yes, Nana Akua, welcome to the healthcare lecture.
Greetings, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you, brother, that was speaking. Listen, I want to say something. I'm shipping some things to Ghana today, and my shipper just called me. Just tell you my business for a second. I need to end early. So if the brother that was just speaking, or if you all have someone else that you've cut short, for me, if they can pick up at 11, I'm just giving an idea so there's not a break. I don't know if Yvonne got to see the message, I just sent it. But if you can make arrangements for someone who maybe was speaking earlier that can come on at 11 so I can go meet my shipper and there's not a break in between me and Dr. Wright, I would suggest that, so that I knew that he would end up kind of coming just as I got on. I was hoping he would come at 11:30, but he's early, he's ahead of time. So Award and Yvonne, if you all can work that out and maybe message some ambassadors or some people who maybe can fill in that gap.
Yes, I think Brother David Chishimba is going to finish up with his speech at 11 after you're done, which will be 6 p.m. our time this side.
Okay. Is that okay, David? Very good. You're muted now, but awesome.
David.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so Elias and Jill and Kasili, thank you for letting me see your beautiful Black faces. Thank you all for joining us today. And forgive me for taking care of some of that housekeeping stuff, but I wanted to be able to address that and then not feel stressed, right? We're talking about stress today. I'd like to not feel stressed and have the ability to have worked that out. You know, I try to be available and accommodating, but there's always things to do. And this is a very important shipment, so I got to kind of get this taken care of. And I don't want my shipper to add on anything because I had him waiting, so. Okay, Bansu and Akich, I'm probably messing your names up. Forgive me, but thank you for turning your cameras on. I can see you a little bit. But yes, greetings everyone. Today we are talking about managing stress and how to identify stressors, how to relieve stress. One thing we know for sure, we will encounter stress. It's unavoidable. It's sort of like change. The only thing that is certain is change. We know that it will happen. And I would venture to say that stress falls in that category. We know that there will be stress. There will be some pushing or pulling, right, in our lives. There will be some incidents almost on a daily basis that will interrupt our pattern, our routine, what it is we normally do. And that can add a certain level of stress, right? And so we have to know how to address those things. Okay, I think I was successful in easily pulling that up, right? And so if you've been with us before, we've used, this handout, and, I always try to add a little something different or focus on a little something. But if you've been with us in the past, you've seen this chart, but I think it's important to start at the beginning. We have to know what stress is in order to address it. And we have to know what to then do, because again, we're always talking about empowering ourselves, empowerment. We want to not only have information, but be able to use it to put ourselves in a better position, to put our families, our communities, in the greater African community, the greater community of Black people, wherever we are in the world. And so knowing what stress is and how to identify it, I think is important. So basic definition of stress: a state of physical or mental tension or something inducing it, right? So it's that mental or physical tension or that thing that causes that mental or physical tension. It also could be defined as pressure or strain that tends to distort a body. And it could be a physical body, or it could be a situation, or it could be a schedule. It could be, a process, but something that kind of puts some kind of pressure or strain to what normally occurs, right? And so we know that it always will be present with different things, and just as sure as the time of day changes, the seasons change, all of these can add some sort of pressure or strain to our situations. So one of many reasons why we know we're connected to nature, we know we're connected to spirit, there's always going to be some kind of push or pull or some kind of strain. And it doesn't have to have a negative connotation, right? It could just be that there is something that creates a change or distorts something a bit, but it may be an opportunity for you to improve yourself, to do things a little different. And while we thought it was a bad or a negative, it could end up being something that works for the good, something that's positive. So let's just list some of the symptoms of stress, right? How is it that we know when we're stressed? Because in order to handle it properly, we must be able to recognize it. So as they say with fixing any kind of issue or problem, right? Whether it's a physical illness, whether it's a mental illness, whether it's some sort of addiction to drugs or alcohol, you first have to identify that you have that issue or that problem, right? So ways to identify symptoms of stress or actual symptoms of stress: depression, difficulty falling asleep, extreme tiredness or fatigue, feelings of anger or resentment, frequent absence from work or other obligations, impatience, inability to concentrate, loss of pleasure in life, increase or decrease in appetite, muscular aches for no apparent reason, stomach or intestinal disturbances. And again, for no apparent reason. Sometimes we know if we've eaten something or had some bad food, we can understand. Just like with the muscle aches, if we know we've had an extensive workout or we walked unusual length of time, those are good reasons that we would know. But for no apparent reasons when these things happen: sweaty palms, tension headaches, and performance anxiety. These are all common symptoms of stress. This is your body, your mind, your spirit telling you that there is a problem. There is some type of stressor. And we know that there are different ways in which to handle stress, right? You can exercise, right? It's always good to, even if you are, I don't know, on an airplane, right? And there's some physical stress, right? The body is tense. You are sore, you're achy, you know, your neck, your back, your legs need to be stretched. There's always different things that we can do to physically, you know, ease tension, right? Or if we know that we're sitting in a class, or we're sitting in a work meeting, or we're having a discussion, a difficult discussion with a loved one, and there's tension built up, then there is a need maybe to do some sort of exercise. It may be to take some deep breaths, right? And allow that tension to be dispelled, right? So exercise in different forms, breathing exercise, physical exercises, maybe even spiritual exercises where you pray more, or you meditate more, or you keep a gratitude journal. There are all types of ways to exercise, quote unquote. But in this regard, even if we're talking strictly about physical exercise, right? We may in fact go to the gym, take a particular class, yoga, Tai Chi, aerobics or step, things of that nature. There's always an opportunity to where you can exercise the tension away. You may need to learn how to deal with negative people, read a book, a blog, listen to a video, take a class on conflict resolution, enhance your skills in communicating so that you can deal with negative people better or easier. So that might be one thing. And that's not to say you're the problem. That could be that you just need to learn how to deal with people so that it doesn't affect you. They still could be wrong. They're still negative. They're still having their own issues, and they still may be communicating poorly. The point is to do what is going to be best for you, how you can effectively handle it so that no added stress is put on you. Give me one moment. Forgive me. You can also decide to join a community club, organization, a recreational center, a social club, get involved in something, volunteer with some sort of community effort or endeavor. You know, get active. Sometimes we sit and that will cause that'll cause us to get more in our feelings, more depressed, to feel more irritable, even if it was another stressor that caused it. If we are more sedentary and we're inactive and we're not utilizing our minds or going and getting out and interacting with people, this can just make the stress build up in the body. You can express yourself. Some people are talkers. Some people go inward. They like to maybe write things down, keep a journal. Some people are private but still like to talk. So you might want to do maybe a video journal, like you speak into a microphone. Because, you know, so I'm pretty private. Maybe that's changing as I get older, but you know, some of the things I listen to people post or videos, they go live on Facebook with these different life events, and I'm going, oh my gosh, you're recording that? Like you're sharing that? Like I would never put that on Facebook. Or, you know, people will post certain things and I'm like, oh wow. I mean, really private things. I mean, traumatic things. And I'm sure it's inspiring. I applaud those people. Me personally, I'm just like, I would never do that. However, I'm pretty sociable. I like to talk. So I have personally, and I haven't done it lately, but years ago, I used to have one of these little mini recorders because I do like to talk. I don't necessarily want anybody to hear it per se. So I would record, right, my thoughts and my feelings. That was my way of just getting it out and expressing it, not for the purpose of somebody else hearing it, right, but just as a way of letting it out and expressing myself, right? Some people are hands-on people. They're like, these are the what do they call it? Kinetic learners, like where they learn with their hands or they use their hands. You may, to express yourself, draw or build things or make things. Whatever it is that helps you express yourself, find that thing and do that when you're feeling stressed. You may be that type that just have to get up, like you don't want to sit. You might need to get up and stretch, march in place, walk up and down the steps, do something physical to get your mind off of a particular stressor. Some people, it is as simple as reassessing your routines, your patterns, right? You may need to change whatever you're doing, whatever your lifestyle is. It could be a scheduling change that you make. It could be altering the schedule, creating a different pattern or routine, devising a new life plan. This can a lot of times alleviate, especially people who are not great with time, or, you know, they always feel rushed or they're always late, things like that. These can be very stressful. It may be as simple as reevaluating your schedule, your routine, what time you get up, what time you leave the house, what time you go to bed, what time do you eat? Like, are you too full to lay down, right? I personally, and you shouldn't, right? You shouldn't go to bed right after eating. You have to allow the body time to digest food, right? So if you have a schedule to where you're eating too late into the evening and you can't lay down or rest adequately in enough time to get you proper rest for your next day, you have to alter your schedule in terms of when you eat. So each and everything, when you get up, when you sleep, when you eat, reevaluate all of those things and see if you need to devise a new plan. For some people, relieving stress or handling stress can be tapping into their spiritual practices, their spiritual beliefs. Do you need to do more spiritual work? Do you need to pray more often? Do you need to talk to your spiritual leader? Do you need to go to service more frequently? Do you need to read whatever spiritual text? You know, if it is the Quran, if it is the Bible, whatever your spiritual source is, do you need to get more involved in that? Do you need to follow some of the rituals? Make sure that you're not doing any of the taboos, you know, getting more in alignment with what you do spiritually and what you believe spiritually. All of that can really be empowering and really help you to address stressful issues through your spiritual practices. And then you may also nurture or pamper yourself more. I always say you are your star player, right? You are the most valuable player on the team, right? Even if it is a team of one, right? You are the most valuable player. You always have to look out for yourself. Self-preservation is the first law of nature, right? So making sure that you are well, that you are good, that you feel good, that you can function well, that you're in good health, mentally, physically, spiritually, and doing those things that nurture that cultivate that. Do I need time every day aside from family, children, people that I am the caregiver for? Do I need to set 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour aside? If it's not every day, or if it's not feasible every day, can I set aside a half of a day once a week? You know, but create some time where you can sit and nurture yourself and you can take care of yourself so that you are well, so that you can operate at an optimal level, right? The next set here are just particular relaxation exercises. These are more to help the physical body handle stress, right? But then this next page I like, and I won't go over this too much, and I know we're running out of time. These are also some really simple ideas of how to relieve stress, right? And it could be as simple as daydreaming, right? Going fishing, dancing, laying in a hammock, listening to the birds, listening to the ocean, whatever the case may be, singing a song, right? I love to sing. It's one of my favorite things in the world. I sing all the time. If you hang around with me, and if I'm comfortable with you, right? I'm always gonna sing. I think in song. If you say something, you say a phrase, and I know a song, and most likely I will know a song that has that phrase, I'm going to sing that song. May do it just in my head, but if I'm comfortable enough with you, I'm gonna sing it out loud. But that for me, it keeps my joy level up, right? I purposely do it because that makes me happy. That's me taking back my power. That's controlling the narrative. That's keeping, me healthy and happy. Chasing joy. That's the only thing we chasing. Some people chase money. Money's important, but if I had to give that advice, chasing joy is all that we should be doing. So I won't go through some of these others. Know that there are physiological responses to stress. We know that in particular, the pituitary glands and the adrenal glands, these help us to manage stress. A lot of times when we don't sleep well and when we're overstressed, it really wreaks havoc on the adrenal glands. And this is usually what helps us to handle stress. So B vitamins, a good diet, proper rest, managing stress, this is how we treat the adrenal glands. We know that there are certain herbs that are sedative and nervine herbs that will help us to handle stress. Taking these things when we are feeling stressed or anxious, or if we are having trouble sleeping, all of these are good options for handling stress, even relieving like tension headaches, things of that nature. So we know certain herbs like orange blossom, St. John's wort, hawthorn blossoms, hibiscus, and more, lavender, many others, valerian, which is not that tasty, but it's very good as a sedative. But we know all of these things can be used to help manage stress as well. Yawning is great for managing stress. Certain nuts and seeds also soothe the cardiovascular system and help the heart function normally and helps us to alleviate stress, has certain minerals and things in it that will help with that. A really good anxiety herb is kava kava. People who suffer from panic attacks, the herb kava kava is excellent for that. Yoga, certain types of stretching, all of these are good ways of handling stress. Next week, and of course, grief. We've talked about flower remedies a little bit, or maybe we didn't. We'll talk about that next week, actually. But grief is a big issue that causes a lot of stress, kind of paralyzes people a lot of times. We'll talk about flower remedies and managing emotions and things of that nature next week. But we know that there are flower remedies and such that will help get through certain situations like that. Even the ones we just kind of briefly talked about, stress, anxiety, grief, all of that is coupled into that as well. So next we'll talk about flower remedies. We'll talk about massage, deep breathing, other ways to manage stress, okay? So I always try to be mindful of my time, so I'm gonna get out of here so I can go meet my shipper. I thank you all for accommodating me with my little schedule change this week. And I thank you for picking up on your on your report. I appreciate that and being able to fill in the gap with that. Award, are you on? Okay, right. So I will talk to you all soon. Yvonne, I'll talk to you soon. And as always, thank you all for joining and listening in, and I bid you good health and peace.
Thank you so much, Nana Akua. Have a pleasant festive season as well. Thank you all for staying with Nana Akua till the rest of the healthcare lecture. And now, without wasting time again, we're going to hear for our brother David Chishimba, all the way from Zambia. to continue with this presentation. Then after our brother David, then I'm going to have Dr. Tyrene Wright to present to us the Pan-African History and Organizing lecture. And I will share to those again who are not in the group where Dr. Tyrene Wright is sharing the reading materials and also syllabus. Kindly let me know in the chat room. And also those who are on Facebook, you can let me know in the comment section so that we can add you in that group so that you can receive those reading materials and also updates from the professor. Yes, Brother David, you can unmute yourself and we can continue from there whilst we're waiting for Dr. Wright to join.
Okay. The challenges that we are having now is in politics. The people that we have, I give an example of Zambia. The people who have now filled up the political arena, some of them are not even politicians. Some of them are just businessmen. Some of them are just they are celebrities just because they are known in their area or they are known around the country. So they tend to run for certain offices, and because they are known, they are voted for, not because they are politicians, and sometimes not because they have solutions, sometimes because they are wealthy, they are rich, they are well known, so they are able to give people money during campaigns. They are able to stage a very good campaign where they have resources, they have vehicles, they have people who have regalia, like a lot of them. So people feel like this is the candidate that people want. But there's less focus on the fact that someone actually is supposed to be a politician who understands why they are in politics, because that person has to understand the history, starting with the culture that I was talking about. Then they have to understand first the history of Pan-Africanism, how Pan-Africanism started. So there's that erosion. What we have to understand is that being a Pan-Africanist is not just waking up one day and saying, I'm a Pan-Africanist. One, you're supposed to understand, how did Pan-Africanism start? What is Pan-Africanism? What is required of me? So those kind of things. So we really need to learn our history. We really need to pick a leaf from those Pan-Africanists who came before us, those Pan-Africanists who pioneered, Pan-Africanism, because in case there are those who don't know, Pan-Africanism didn't start in Africa. Actually, it started in America. That's where Pan-Africanism started from. First, let me just start from colonialism. When we talk about colonialism, let me start from slavery. When you talk about slavery, there was slavery, and I don't think there are sacred cows during the time of slavery, because even our own brothers, they would capture some of our brothers and they would take them to trading posts on the African coast, and they would actually sell us for us to be transported to West Indies, because that's where most of the plantations were. West Indies, America, that's where most of the plantations where our brothers used to work in. So our own brothers would capture us and they would take us to the Portuguese, because back then the Portuguese were the voyagers. They're the ones who used to transport slaves. So they would take us to the Portuguese and sell us. But before 17th century, when you look at 16th century, that was 1500 somewhere there. The Portuguese, even the Arab traders, they were not comfortable going into Africa. So the people who were capturing Africans that time were Muslims. So they were Muslim traders, slave traders would come into Africa and capture Africans and sell them. So here there is no sacred cow, maybe to say Muslims are way much better in our history of slavery. They also used to capture us. Now, after some time, they, the Portuguese and the Europeans and the Americans, they thought, no, they were not having enough. slavery wasn't enough. They wanted now the resources in Africa. That's when, after making trading posts around the African coast, then they came into Africa, started colonizing the kingdoms which had been formed, like the ones I talked about. There was the Congo Kingdom in Congo and Angola. There was the Monomtapa Kingdom around Zambia and the rest of the country, and also the Swahilis in the east of Africa, Mozambique, somewhere there. There were these kingdoms which had been formed, and now the Europeans came and started colonizing, our people. So now this colonization started happening between 1871 and 1814. That's when there was a scramble for Africa. That's when there was scramble for Africa. Somewhere between the 1600 and the 19th century. This is when slavery was ending. We did not stop slavery. The people stopped slavery were actually there were some good Europeans there in England. They were called abolitionists. So they started the abolishing of slavery. They started by fighting in parliament. But to start with, the ones who started talking about it more were evangelists. They were not all bad. They were evangelists who started questioning the moral standing of slavery. After talking about it for a long time on their pulpits, then there were some politicians who were abolitionists, who were activists. They picked that up, they took it in parliament, they started fighting it. They actually started fighting slavery starting as way back at 1779. That's when it was taken into the British Parliament. Then in 1807, I think that's when they abolished slave trade. But they didn't abolish slavery. So slave trade was abolished in 1807. There was a court order which was established, and also in America, the slave trade was abolished. You couldn't now get slaves from Africa to take them maybe to Europe or America. But slavery wasn't abolished. So those slaves who had slave owners were still slaves, so they were not given that freedom. So now they started fighting now for the liberation of all the slaves which were held. So around 1833 they now abolished slavery. It was now not legal for anyone to hold slavery, but in America it remained because slaves were not owned by colonial systems, were owned by local traders, so they couldn't abolish that. So they were fighting court cases, and all that. But somewhere around 1887, somewhere there, 1880, somewhere there, slavery was abolished in all of America and Europe. So slavery was done away with. Now there was now that fight for the rights of Black people. After 1887, somewhere there, 1890. Now there was that fight for the civil rights for Black people, and now they started colonizing Africa, and a Pan-Africanist now came on board. Now this is when Pan-Africanists starting from 1880. Pan-Africanists started now for the civil rights of black people. So it started in America. There were very influential people such as Webb Du Bois. There were other Pan-Africanists in Europe also. Webb Du Bois in America is one of those Pan-Africanists who were very influential during that time. There was also Marcus Garvey. So Marcus Garvey was also one of the first Pan-Africanists, but they were different in terms of approach. Marcus Garvey wanted inclusion, wanted equal rights. Webb Du Bois wanted inclusion, wanted equal rights. Marcus Garvey thought it was not possible for a Black man to succeed in a white man's controlled economy, because when they controlled these economies, there was a separation of even public institutions. If you went to a bar, there was a bar for colored people. There was a bar also for white people. You can't go to a bar for white people, but these institutions for white people are also way much better than those for Black people. So Marcus Garvey thought it was not possible for a black man to succeed in a white man's, rude economy. But Webb Du Bois, him thought it was possible. So they were fighting. They were on it was the same coin, but different sides. They were fighting for the same thing, but the approach was, is what was different. So that fight, went on. The same fight is what instigated now Africans to start rising up as Pan-Africanists, because Pan-Africanism is a belief that every individual of African descent needs. We have the same needs and we have the same destiny. So we need to unite to fight for the development of social, political, and civil rights. So we need to fight for this development. So we need to unite, whether someone is in the diaspora or whether someone is in Africa. So when they started that fight, now there was that need for unity among Africans. So they had the first Pan-Africanist meeting that was, I think, in Europe. Somewhere, I think 1900, somewhere there, they had the first Pan-Africanist meeting. Then they had several Pan-Africanist meetings. So there was progress in terms of civil rights movements in America. There was also progress in terms of pushing for the liberation of African countries. So after the Second World War, that was 1945. After the Second World War, the much focus was on the liberation of Africans. That was the focus where it was. I'm telling you, there were a lot of very passionate Africans, very passionate Pan-African Africans who are living in Africa. Some of these very passionate Pan-Africanists was Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah, by then, I think he was in Europe, managing certain affairs and also getting education. After that, he came back to Ghana. Ghana was the first African nation to be given independence. And much of what Kwame Nkrumah learned was from George Padmore, because George Padmore was also a very influential Pan-Africanist, a very influential Pan-Africanist. So this is the history of Pan-Africanism. So as long as we don't understand how this started, what motivated Pan-Africanism to start, I think it will be very difficult for us to have the right reaction to the political status that we have. The reason why we were in the mess that we were in during our colonial rule, it was because Americans and the Europeans, they were more advanced in terms of culture than us. They were more advanced in terms of technology than us. So we couldn't compete with them. So they could easily, if they wanted to use force, they could easily use force and defeat us if we didn't agree. So now it's up to us now to realize that as long as, even right now there's neo-colonialism. The first form of the proto-colonialism is no longer there. Now there's neo-colonialism. How they are colonizing us is because we are not financially capable of developing our own countries separately without depending on foreign capital. So that's why they have come back colonizing us. And we are also not capable to fight them as far as war is concerned. So we don't have the military capability to fight them back in an event that we refused to adhere to the rules they gave us, and there was an altercation with them. So we're not able to fight them. So our focus as Africans now is supposed to be,
Brother David, you can wrap up. We humbly appreciate all the teachings which we did learn today about from the culture and to the Pan-Africanism and how it has been affected by colonialism and also to neo-colonialism as well. Thank you so much, brother. You can wrap up again so that we can have the time right present to us the Pan-African history in the organizing class.
Okay, so just wrapping up, I just want to urge our brothers that we need to read, we need to study, because our first Pan-Africanists, They were not people who were not learned. They were actually intellectuals. They were doctors, professors, and whatnot. So we need to read, we need to know, we need to study what happened to us and learn from our history. Right now, what we need is to create manufacturing industries in Africa so that we can be financially independent. Just like Thomas Sankara was killed, just like the vision which he had, he started and he was killed. Just like Saddam, not Saddam Hussein, just like Kwame Nkrumah was removed from president when he went to visit in Europe. The vision that he had, it's the same vision that we need to have. As long as our presidents continue to clap when they are given money, when they beg for money from the Europeans and they are given maybe to build something as small as a school, as long as they continue to clap and and feel like they have achieved something, then we are not going anywhere, then we haven't done anything. Because up to now, no African nation sits on the Security Council for the UN, which means they do not regard us as their equals, even if we have our own our sovereignty. So we need to fight to a situation we need to fight for a situation where we are financially capable of handling our own financial affairs and also contribute to the global community and also able to fight off any military altercation from outside Africa.
All right, thank you so much, Brother David, for staying with us to the Pan-African History and Organizing class. And also everyone on this call, we do appreciate you. Welcome to the Pan-African History and Organizing lecture with Dr. Tyrone Wright. Yes, Dr. Tyrone Wright, welcome to the lecture.
Hello, everyone. You'll see me momentarily. I had to rush home myself to get ready for you all. So I'm glad that everybody is tuned in. For those of you who celebrate things like the Christmas holiday, this is your Eve, so you are probably, making sacrifice to be on here. And I appreciate it. Everyone else, I celebrate, like Kwanzaa, a cultural holiday. So I won't really start celebrating until the day after what is Christmas. So I appreciate you all being on here. Let me get my camera together. And if you have been paying attention in the WhatsApp group, you know that prior to this session, I made available the readings for this week. I didn't get a chance to get to Du Bois last week, so I actually shared it already. And not only did I share it, I actually put the most notable contribution that Du Bois made up in the chat in the WhatsApp group as well. So hold on one second, let me get my camera. And then I'm going to start sharing those documents so that you can see what you should be looking at for this week. Okay. Let me see. It's very cold here. So some of you, those of you who are on the African continent, you are very lucky, or in warm places in general, you're very lucky and blessed, because where I'm at, it's 9 degrees. Okay. So yeah, that's an interesting thing. Let me see, get this camera going. Okay, you should see. Okay, good, you're able to see me. So I have a shadow there, but welcome everyone. Let me put my glasses on for you. So welcome everyone, and thank you for taking your time out to join us today. So I have a couple of documents that I actually put up, and one is a document on Du Bois. And if you remember, for the chapter that we read together in this book, Book to Wash in Africa, it's the chapter in that book that we read on Booker T. Washington, Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanist. The last page or two, you got a picture of Du Bois, and Marcus Garvey, two of the most impactful Pan-Africanists of their time, right? If you remember, that's the last page of the chapter that we read. So I'm breaking them out separately and just giving you some information on their major contributions. So last week we spoke about Marcus Garvey. This week we're covering Du Bois. And I shared a document by Du Bois called On Race. I'm going to share it here for those of you who are not officially in our WhatsApp group. But the document shares with you Du Bois himself speaking of his genealogy. And I do think that it is important for us to know who our Pan-Africanists are, who are they ethnically, who are they culturally, so you can understand their ideation, what they're made of. You know, it's like somebody telling you about their upbringing, their childhood story, how they come into the world. And that matters. That matters, because sometimes when we see people doing or saying things, we're like, what planet are you from? And when you understand that from which they come from, right, then you get an understanding of their thinking. You know, many of our Pan-Africanists were extraordinary people, and I'm moving towards the African continent in terms of the individuals we cover, right? So starting with Garvey and Du Bois, you know, Garvey, we talked a little bit about him. I didn't talk about his upbringing, but I talked about his context and how he arrives in the United States and what shaped his thinking, right? How he says he read Booker T. Washington's book, and that told him of his doom to be a race leader, right? And then he fashioned the UNIA, his organization, after the Tuskegee model. So we have some context for Garvey. But Du Bois, very peculiar individual, okay? Born in Boston, orphaned by the age of 12 or 13, raised by his mother until she died when he's around 12 or 13. And so he's sort of a charge to the community. It's interesting because if you all are familiar with Du Bois, you know that a lot of people, Du Bois himself, and a lot of people consider Du Bois, you know, Boule, or, you know, the aristocracy, so to speak. And the truth of the matter is, materially, he was not that. He was not. He was orphaned, and he was not a wealthy person, not in his childhood and not in his adulthood either, even with a PhD from Harvard. Okay. That being said, he was educationally elite. And educationally elite is something very different from economically elite. And so he was, don't get me wrong, you can get money. Education, you may or may not be able to get, right? And that's the problem with education. Education is something that you can use to enrich other people's lives once you obtain it and use it to, you know, help other people. Or it can become completely personal, where you only gratify yourself as a result of it. And elevate yourself. So it can become very, very, very personal. This is why, you know, people are sort of got a lot of energy around education, because it could be used only for personal gratification if one wants to, and or you could use it to help gratify, affirm, see Emmanuel, other people and your community and your, you know, your nation, on and on and on, however you seek to use it or however you have the opportunity to use it. So that's a peculiar thing, right? So money one can get, education, you can get it if you can earn it, right? Theoretically, if you can't earn it, right, then you, then yeah, you won't obtain it, right? It has to be worked for. It's not something that actually comes about as a result of, you know, just physical labor or anything like that. But anyway, point being is that the Du Bois is not economically elite in any way. He is educationally elite, intellectually elite, so to speak. And so he is a charge to the community. And normally if he were a white child born in that community, orphaned at an early age in Boston, the community would have sent him to Harvard because, and that's how they say it, or at least that's my view of how they say it. But he wasn't a white child who was a charge to the community. He's a Black child, okay? And so he is sent to Fisk, a historically Black college in Tennessee, okay? And Fisk is actually, while it is a Black college, is a Black college initiated by white people for Black people, okay? I actually come from an HBCU, but it's not the same kind, okay? The institution I come from, Tuskegee, is initiated by Black people for Black people, right? The vision and mission is our own, those ancestors who envisioned educating people and were one step out of enslavement. Fisk, on the other hand, is initiated by white people for Black people. So this is sort of like what white people think Black people should be, really. And not to knock Fisk, because Fisk had their struggles later on. The institution during the 60s would have very intense struggles because they were a Black school, Black students, but still very white administration, white president of their institution. You understand? And certainly, I don't know the facts of their board, but certainly if the president is white and all of that, a white board, because the board creates, hires the president, finances the president works for the board of trustees in essence, right? Sort of like the figurehead. So that being said, he is sent to Fisk. And so you can read in what I sent you all, this particular document on race, where Du Bois talks about his ideation and his genealogy, how he develops, and his family history even before his existence. Okay, and some of you will be amused to know that he has some ancestors who were born in the Caribbean and then come to the United States. And then he has, of course, the traditional story in America where they coalesce or they engage some Europeans of the French ethnicity or culture, right, here in the United States. Now, Du Bois is unusual because he is someone who is born right out of enslavement. So he never was a slave. He was born in the North. He is able to be formally educated. He is the smartest one in his class always, and he is Black. So he's growing up, he is a Black person growing up in a very much white world, okay? That's a totally different ideation. Even myself, I can't relate, okay? Because I have gone to many schools and earned degrees. However, the base, the core culturally of who I am has been in the Black experience, in the Black context, and most often with African culture and values present always, right? So I can't relate to that. Now, don't get me wrong. I've been in spaces where I'm the only Black person once I'm in grad school and stuff like that, or have those moments. However, that is not the space in which I reside. But that for Du Bois is the space in which he resided and was quite comfortable there, because after he graduates from Fisk, he goes to Harvard, where he thought he should have always been, right? So it's sort of a return for him, right? That community sent him away to the Black school. He does well, and he comes back to his very own community and goes to Harvard and gets the first PhD in history, first Black person to get a PhD in history at Harvard, okay? And so he would engage in the study of history and society, or you could say sociology, so to speak, for the duration of his career. He's studying. He takes the study of the African person in America and he puts it on a scientific basis. If you read the chapter, then you know that that's what he did, right? He's talking about putting the study of the so-called Negro on a more scientific basis, okay? So that being said, the piece I gave you, and I want to share it. Hold on one second. I'm gonna take myself off camera only because I'm like looking for the document, but I'll keep talking. he's he takes his own genealogy to delve into an understanding of some of what exists here. And yes, he had some personal conflicts. He even talks about having double consciousness and all of that kind of stuff. Something I also cannot relate to. But he is, hold on, let me see. Where is our, all right, here we go. And I want you all to see this on my device too, as I do this, because I want you to see, I want you to see, I'm gonna share right now my screen. I want you to see, am I sharing? Can you all see? Do you see the WhatsApp group?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So here's the document you're gonna read, right? Du Bois, the concept of race. And I'm not gonna go deep into it because I want you to read it on your own. It's 9 pages long, but I'm just gonna quickly go straight to the end and tell you sort of how it ends. He, if you're interested in his genealogy and understand what he is made of, both in terms of ideation and terms of genealogy, this would be interesting for you. But he ends up ultimately telling you that he belongs to African people. And I think that that's so significant, because after you read everything about his family history and all of that, you come to the understanding that Du Bois ultimately knows that he is a child of Africa. Okay, in spite of all his the cracks and nicks and bumps and whatever in his thinking, and I say he certainly does. I would certainly be honest about that, because I think anybody who talks about having double consciousness, something which I don't quite understand, meaning that he's in the Black world and the white world, so he's in the Black world peering into the white world, yearning to be recognized and affirmed there. I can't relate to that. I just can't. Okay, because maybe my upbringing, not maybe, my upbringing is quite different, and most of your upbringing is going to be quite different. Most of us are not in the situation and in the time, in the period that Du Bois lived in. And that's so important when we study history, to understand that we have to keep historical figures and individuals in their context, in their historical context, right? Don't bring them into the 21st century, because they did not exist in the 21st century. All right. So their thinking is a product of their time, their context. They are defining themselves in the context of time and space as they know it. Right. So we want to be gracious. But that being said, I've never related to this theory or this thing that Du Bois coined called double consciousness, right? So it's even with that, he is able to still affirm Africa and say, at the end of the day, I am still a child of Africa. I belong to Africa, right? What is Africa to me? Once I should have answered the question simply, I should have said fatherland, or perhaps better motherland, because I was born in the century when the walls of race were clear and straight, when the world consisted of mutually exclusive races. And even though the edges might be blurred, there was no question of exact definition and understanding of the meaning of the word. One of the first pamphlets that I wrote in 1897 was on the conservation of races, wherein I set down as the first article of a proposed racial creed: we believe the Negro people as a race have a contribution to make to civilization and humanity, which no other race can make. So he basically affirms us as African people. Of course, he says fatherland, or perhaps better, motherland, right? So he understands that from which he came, that he ultimately is an African person, right? And he writes a little poem before this. What is Africa to me? Copper sun or scarlet sea, jungle star or jungle track, strong bronze men or regal black women from whose loins I sprang, right? So he's saying women from who I come from. When the birds of Eden sang, 3 centuries removed from the scenes his fathers loved. Spicy groove, cinnamon tree, what is Africa to me? And so he tells you, essentially that he is a child. What does this mean right here? Woman whose loins I sprang, right? Strong bronze men or regal black women from whose loins I sprang. So this is who he's saying he comes from, okay? So that's there. You can read this whole thing, but the first half of it is telling you his family genealogy, and he sounds quite confused, right? And so he gives you an understanding of the concept of race and his concept of race at that time. Now, the significant contribution of Du Bois is the fact that Du Bois would go on to establish, as you know in the chapter you read, the Pan-African Congresses. Okay? Remember in the last chapter that we read together, he establishes the Pan-African Congress. Let me see. Let me come on. Oh, well, I don't know how to come on camera and do this at the same time. Okay, so I'll just leave it here. Can you still see the document?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So he is telling you through his establishment of the Congresses what is still ultimately important. And what is important, Du Bois understands, is the fact that Africa moves towards unity. So in 1919, okay, this is the wrong document. Hold on a second. At 1919, Du Bois is the sole survivor of the Pan-African Congresses. And let me just recap really quickly. So you had the first Pan-African Conference in 1900. Many attended, Du Bois included. Washington was invited. He does not go, but he supports Du Bois in his attendance, and Washington is involved in the plenary sessions that lead to the Pan-African Conference, first of its kind. It's initiated by Henry Sylvester Williams of the African Association. He's born in Trinidad, resides in London, and is organizing this huge conference on behalf of the African Association, right? They invite everyone. They ask Booker T. Washington to promote the conference in the United States. He is the person in control of the Black press. Widely promotes the first Pan-African Conference, but does not attend it. And not because of Du Bois, because they're in a good relationship at the time. That being said, that is 1900, right? It is a significant conference. Out of that, a bare bones definition of Pan-Africanism emerges: the unification of African people for the purpose of eradicating oppression and exploitation. Okay. And basically it says we are coming together to address our condition. And certainly it should be to our benefit. So let me be very clear. One of the things you need to understand and learn in this course, African people, anywhere we are, can come together. But if it's not to address our condition and do something tangible in light of remedying our condition, then it is not Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism is not simply us Black people being in the same place at the same time. That's not what Pan-Africanism is. Pan-Africanism is a verb, it's an action, it is work that we do that basically addresses our condition around the globe, okay? Regardless of our location, right? So we are experiencing the residual of the same condition, the same plight. Racism, white supremacy and culture, neo-colonialism, colonialism, all of that, okay? Systematic racism, marginalization, and basically at the end of the day, the reality that all of our life chances are decreased as a result of this thing called, or this pathology called, white supremacy and culture, AKA racism. So, and it is a pathology, just for the record, meaning that race is not even real. It is not a real biological provable status. So this is all social construct. Now the social construct is real, yes. However, biologically, there is not this thing called race is non-existent. There's only human beings, right? And culture is very, very real, right? Race is not exactly real. Okay. And we know that most of all as African people, because we create and we hold the genetic variation. We held the blueprint for the genetic variation. In other words, we can make any type of human being on the earth and have, okay? We are the human progenitors of humanity. In other words, the parent people of all other groups of people, right? So they are not racially different, okay? They are culturally different, and they are a product of their environments in terms of the physical differences that you can see. But Europeans created this thing called race that is a categorization based on physical appearance only, okay? And that in and of itself is not real, right? It's not can't test somebody's blood and say they're black or white, okay? So that being said, and you guys got that because we saw the journey of man, the genetic odyssey, right? We saw this Khoisan people, and we could see how they are a very old group of people, one of the earlier and oldest group of people in existence right now. But that being said, so Pan-Africanism is about us coming together in light of our condition in the world and working to do something. Now, Garvey's approach to working, his activity under Pan-Africanism would be to start an organization and organize the African world so that we can aptly address our condition. That is Garvey's approach, right? And he organizes it through his paper, the Negro World Organization, Universal Negro Improvement Association. But Du Bois would do something different. He would use organization as a vehicle. However, he would write, he is a theorist, he is a social scientist of sorts, and he is seeking to also prove that our condition is not specific to us in a biological sense. It is about the situation and circumstances that we have been put in. And so he is the person that in 1919, this conference that you're looking at on your screen, the Pan-African Congress resolutions, he is the initiator of this Congress. He creates the Pan-African Congresses, okay? Congresses, as opposed to the first Pan-African Conference, CONFERENCE, right? He creates the Congresses, CONGRESS, as you see. Why? Because the Congresses are a continuous meeting, okay? Ongoing meeting that would commit itself to being the intellectual think tank for Pan-Africanism. And it would ultimately be the think tank that through which African leadership would visualize and organize around bringing continental unity to Africa. Okay, and yes, we're still in that struggle. So once again, Du Bois' significance is this. He is at the first Pan-African Conference, and he does not forget the vision and the mission that is Pan-Africanism. He doesn't forget it. He doesn't let it go. He doesn't let it die. And because in 1919, he is the sole survivor. Okay? And one of the key organizers of the Pan-African Congresses. Okay? So he is not only the only person who was at the 1900 conference who is alive in 1919. He hasn't forgotten the mission. And so he becomes one of the major organizers of the Pan-African Congresses, of which there are 5. And here, as I told you, you'll be getting some historical documents. Here, you have the 2 most important of the 5. You have their resolutions. Okay, so you know every Congress, every conference, because these are the congresses, which means they're continuous, but certainly the event is considered a conference, right? So it's in conference format. So this is the resolution for the 1919 Congress. Okay, as you can see here, it took place in 1919 in Paris. And then here it is, the 1945 Congress resolutions. Okay, two of the most important, it would be at this Congress's resolution, Congress, that the African leadership present there would ultimately understand and declare that there must be a unified Africa and there must be a move towards continental liberation from the colonial powers, right? So out of this Congress would come something later on called the OAU, the Organization of African Unity, initiated by Kwame Nkrumah, Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah, okay? And it's a very powerful thing because Nkrumah is saying, not only do we want independence of individual African countries, but that independence means nothing if it is not going to lead to continental unity. You know, it's just like the individual fingers on a hand and then the power of your fist. It's the difference between the two. So I'm going to stop the share because you guys saw that document. So you have all of those in the WhatsApp group already, okay? But, you know, Du Bois is the progenitor of the Congresses. The think tank is formed. African leadership has a platform through which they can come together and strategize around the independence of Africa. And out of that is born the Organization of African Unity. And you have Nkrumah at the helm of that and other Pan-Africanists who are able to use this as a vehicle through which they get fortified politically and ideologically in order to move forward with their independence struggles, right? And so this is very important, okay? So I'm gonna stop there because it's 11:48. I'm gonna take some questions. And the next session we'll talk about what has happened to the OAU. As today it manifests as something very different, okay? See Emmanuel, hi, okay, good morning, Dr. Wright. Was it true that Du Bois was a eugenicist with Margaret? I've never heard that before. I would not know. I've never heard that. I've never heard that before with regard to Du Bois being aligned even with Margaret Sanger. But let me just say this about Du Bois. Du Bois was a very unusual individual. He was a very highbrow individual. So he definitely, I would say he had some issues around class and class struggle. You know, he was very different than a figure like Du Bois in the sense that he never experienced enslavement. He did not know what it meant to be chattel, involved in chattel slavery or the property of another human being. So he had a very different reality and existence than someone like Booker T. Washington, right? Like, not that I got deep into Washington. We just use this book to write, like, give context to the chapter on Pan-Africanism. But you know, Du Bois, I worked with a man, I worked with a professor who actually met Du Bois, and he said Du Bois was, you know, very much in his own world, I'll say it that way, mildly. Okay, and this person at the time that I worked with him, let me see, this is a couple of years ago in 2017, he was in his 90s, and he said that he had met Du Bois at Columbia when he was a student at Columbia University in New York. So, you know, I don't doubt that, because you can see pictures of Du Bois. You see Du Bois in a high hat and, you know, really Victorian dress, you know, male Victorian sort of dress, and all of that. You know, I've never seen Du Bois in a dashiki or traditional African garb. You know, and I don't know that he would have ever been, even though, let me be very clear for those of you who don't know, Du Bois, after a lifetime in the struggle, one of his biggest challenges and things he tried to do was make the US government fulfill the promise of Reconstruction. Okay. And it is what he tried to do in terms of that was probably, I think, one of the most noble and authentic and things someone who survived and lived during that period in history could have done. Okay, the African population in America had fought a war, had taken their liberation and freedom in a war that was not initially about them, and snatched and essentially wrestled away their bodies from this country that always expected to have their bodies as property. Okay. And on the other side of the war, the Civil War I'm talking about in the United States, were these Reconstruction amendments that also come out of the people who took their freedom in that war. So when you hear, those of you who, you know, might not be in the United States, we hear about the US and the Civil War and all that kind of stuff. The Civil War, the United States never ever planned for the African population to be free. And Lincoln says it himself. He's very clear in the historical record. He says, if I have to free all of the slaves or none of the slaves to preserve the Union, I will do it. In other words, he's saying, and so freeing of the enslaved African population in America is a military strategy. It is very well established that it's a military strategy. And you know, that is something that many people may not understand, but it's very well documented in the history. Okay. That being said, what would end up on the other side is political freedom, political recognition, because now this population has to be counted. I'll get deep into it next time. I don't want to get too deep into it and get into a whole US history lesson. But the point is that emancipation itself, the citizenship, naturalization, 14th Amendment, which is something that people are still fighting. Also, US people who immigrate to the United States are the beneficiaries of this amendment that comes out of the Black freedom struggle in America. So the African population who's formerly enslaved are the ones who pressed for the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which allows for naturalization, meaning anyone born on US soil is a citizen, and that people can be made citizens through naturalization. That being the case, to this day, it once established by this group, it is open to everyone who comes to America, right? This is where people are able to get citizenship and all of this kind of stuff, and it comes out of the Black freedom struggle. And the final and last amendment to the US Constitution was the 15th Amendment. These are the Reconstruction amendments, and that last amendment, 15th Amendment, gives the right to vote to those who are citizens, and it says that it can't be denied. That being the case, don't get me wrong, the Republican Party, who is the party of Lincoln, it's a political strategy. Initially, Lincoln's move with the African population in the United States is a military strategy. And then on the other side of the war, the 14th and 15th Amendments, naturalization and the right to vote, are political strategies on the part of on the part of the Republican Party at the time, which was the party of Lincoln. So in other words, these people are free now. Who will be the political beneficiaries of this free population, right? The South or the North, right? Will it be the Republican or Democratic parties that will be the beneficiary? So there's no way that the Republican Party was going to allow the vote, the number count, right? Because it goes by population, to be a political boom to the South. So they made sure that not only did they naturalize, but bestow the right to vote on that newly free African population, and who would certainly vote Republican. Just so you guys know, there's a historical break there. Most Black people were Republican before the 20th century, up until, FDR, Roosevelt, till the New Deal in the 40s. But the point is that now there's a political boom for the Republican Party, the party of Lincoln, and all of that kind of stuff. And this allows them to control still the Union called the United States. That being said, Du Bois is the person to say, you're going to, this 14th Amendment that you got political boom from, and this 15th Amendment, this right to vote, we are going to also, you guys benefit from giving us that, because it was, as one of my history professors always said, Black people in America in particular can only go as far as white people allow them, unfortunately, because they have the franchise, okay? And there's the threat of violence. I respect a young man who was on here speaking before I came on, because he was talking about Africa and the dynamics of colonialism and dealing with the West and the United States. And yeah, in terms of military might, the United States and other Western nations have it, okay? However, we have the resources. That's Africa's power, right? Cobalt. They can't do much with their military if they can't get the cobalt. If Africa shuts down flow to the resources, they can't do none of what they want to do in the world. So, but that's a whole nother conversation for off air. That being said, the African population now at that period says the 14th Amendment, naturalization, equal protection under the law, the fact that we can be educated, that we can have businesses, that we can own property, that we can vote, that we can participate in civil society, that we can be fully citizens. We are going to exercise it because you guys got your benefit off of it on the political level, right? You used us for political power in this country. Now we are going to get our bit and you will fulfill it. And so that's where Du Bois is coming from. He's saying that the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment that come right after the Civil War, those amendments were written in the blood of the formerly enslaved African people. And he will not take no for an answer when it comes to exercising those things. And so, it is a righteous cause, right? But what we have to understand about Du Bois is, and I'm gonna end on this, he lived for about 100 years almost. He's like 90, in his late 90s when he finally passes away. And he expatriates to where? The continent of Africa, okay? He is disgruntled. He is over America. He's done with it. It has not fulfilled its promise. It has not fulfilled the Reconstruction Amendments as he saw it. It was a useless cause, and he revokes his American citizenship and he expatriates to Ghana. Osaje Kwame Nkrumah says, come to Ghana. You still have much work to do. And he writes, a major volume on the history of African people and so on and so forth. And he is a resident of Ghana. And he dies in Ghana. And I think it's with great poetic justice and even irony that he does, because early in his life, he was not particularly interested in Africa in that way, okay? Expatriated. He was very much involved in the American fight, American plight, right? Although, what does he say in the first piece I give you? And that's early. He says he's a child of Africa. He knows this. He knows he comes from the loins of mothers who are from Africa. He knows that, he doesn't deny it. But was he to the point where he's saying like, hey, I'm gonna make that 4,000-mile journey across the Atlantic and you know, rehome myself, so to speak? No, he's not there, but he lives a long time. And so he does a, you could say a 380, a 180, but I would say he is fully complete. He is, you know, a full transformation, which is very important. We don't like to, whether it's on the continent, whether it's here, us as African people, we very seldom like to look at the transformation of our people, but that's what we should be studying, right? Because most of us are in transitional phase. How do we get from point A to point B? He went from someone who was very American to someone who understood that he is an African in this world, and whether he's in America or whether he's on the African continent, our plight and struggle are the same. Right? It took him 100 years to get that, internalize it, but he did. And most of us don't get that much time to process that, right? We can only pray, right? Especially now. But so that's the case with Du Bois. But read the first document and then read the resolutions, because they're perfect example of the first and the fifth Pan-African Congresses. And it lets you see where the Congresses start in their thinking and where they end right before the moment. It's the eve of African revolutions and liberation on the continent. Okay, what were African leaders organizationally thinking right the moment right before 1945? Because then you have, in, you know, Ghana and Nkrumah and all the African nations during what we would call an African Spring, 1962, 1963, where 17 African nations take their liberation, take their countries back, okay, and liberate their people from the colonial regimes, imperialists, and so on. So that's a very important thing. That's for next lecture. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but let me just say this. If any 17 countries, not even African countries, 17 countries anywhere in 2 years' time fought off the cloak of their colonial regimes, nobody would ever stop talking about it, okay? But it was us, it was Africans. And so it is buried. So it only lives if we talk about it. It is something that the world has never seen before. We took the African continent back, okay? Period. Nobody's ever, can you imagine the consciousness? And so that consciousness that allows them, that ideology, the understanding, the development of their minds that allow them to act, comes from these think tanks, comes from the Pan-African Congresses, and then the Organization of African Unity. That's where the thinking comes from. As we know, everything begins with an idea. So that's what ideology is about, a thought. And then that thought being coupled with what? Action, right? And so it's a moment that who cares if they ever get sick of it, but we should repeat it over and over and over and over again, because that means that we can shift the trajectory of the world, okay? And one of the most important places that it happens, aside from the Africa being the most important places, in the heart of the Congo, right? Where you had Patrice Lumumba. We'll talk about that the next session, everything and all, you know, the actual nations, how it happens, all of that. But I can't stress anymore that the process of developing oneself ideologically, which is what we're doing right here and now, is what is the precursor to the action, whatever action that you engage in. I was revisiting one of my professors' lectures on another platform that I was a guest on. And one of my professors, Professor Fluker, always say, know what is opposite of you and you will know what it is that you have to do. And that comes from a group called The Last Poets. And basically it's to say that you have to know where you are in the context of time and space in the world. And then once you have your mind right, you develop, you know, without a doubt, how to move. Right? And wherever you go, you are an agent for African people, right? Working for our liberation, okay? And our freedom. All right, so I'm gonna leave it there because I am 20 minutes over, as usual. And I appreciate you all staying until the end. Okay. Thank you very much. Stay safe during the holiday season. Don't eat too much. Well, eat too much, but eat the right stuff. And so I will see you all next week. We don't skip a beat here, or at least I don't take off. So I'll see you next week, even though it'll be close to the new year. All right. All right. Peace, and I am because we are. Okay. Peace. Bye.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wright.
Thank you.
Yes, you're going to try and enjoy the festive season.
Yes, enjoy the holiday season, but don't get sick from the food. All righty. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye-bye.